We should.
Hello and welcome to Chick Chat and Chill. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Antoinette. I'm the founder of Pixel This. It's a full service design firm, and we elevate your brand from the ground up, and we make sure it's unforgettable at every single touch point, whether it's logos or packaging or full scale promotions or social media strategies to keep yourself out there and relevant, whatever it is, we're the design firm you need. But I want to introduce my co host, Laura.
Hello, I am Laura Fickett, your financial stress reduction coach. I own Fickett Financial Coaching, and we like to help people make more money, manage it better, retain it to build their wealth. We're in tax season here. We're recording during tax season, and I'll tell people, if you don't tell your money where to go, you're always going to wonder where it went. So I do free consultations, and I love to help people make more money. One of the ways that people make money is through a business. So today we're going to talk about starting a business, which I'm very excited, or a franchise. So I'm very excited to talk about this topic because a lot of times I meet with people and they hate their job, or they really feel like they're putting a lot of effort in and they're not getting a lot of finances back, and they want to know, like, if I do this for the next 40 years, am I going to be wealthy? And sometimes the answer is no. Because let's say you make $100,000 a year for 40 years, you're like, wow, $4 million. But you factor in like 4 kids and health insurance and house insurance and car insurance and food and all the other expenses. The average person doesn't have much left by the time retirement comes. And so a lot of people are looking, they want more freedom financially and they want more freedom with time. And so they're looking to start a business. So, I mean, how hard is starting a business? We're going to get into it. And how hard is starting a franchise? Now, Antoinette here owns a franchise, so she's going to tell us a little bit about franchises, and I'm excited to hear.
Hello. So, I know when I was looking, I specifically sought a franchise because I've opened a business prior to that and I knew what went into it. So I was actually switching gears. I was opening a business and so I wanted to switch gears. I purposely wanted to. And I was getting into something new and I didn't want to go through the same growing pains as I did as a business. When you open a business, there's a lot of things that what's the software, what's the CRM, how, like, you think like, oh, I want to do this service or specialize in this, but you don't realize 90% of your time is a lot of times focused on non-business stuff. So with a franchise, it's kind of like a cheat code. You get it, and it's kind of like McDonald's. Like, that's probably the most famous franchise that almost everyone across the globe knows. You have a McDonald's pop into a town. And the statistic among restaurants is like 90% of restaurants fail in the first year. But I mean, really, if a McDonald's opens, they never fail in the first year. And most of them are managed by like a 17-year-old. I mean, the whole point is a franchise. They've done all the work. They know, they know how to hire, market, they have a website, they have a brand, they have this whole thing, and you just follow the steps to success.
It's like
basically.
business in a box.
Yeah, business in a box.
Yep.
I mean, but there are downsides to a franchise too.
True.
So that's kind of some of the upswings. But on the down low, there's minimums you have to meet. So, for example, you have to, maintain a certain amount of income. Every franchise is different, but you have to maintain a certain minimum. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the royalties they should have received had you have made the money. And if you're not careful, it could eat up everything you made the last year. I mean, honestly.
And even if you buy a franchise, right? I mean, and you decide not to get started fast and furious like you should, you still have to pay that franchise fee, right?
Yeah. So with a normal business, if I want to do grow it at my own pace, you're free to do that. With a franchise, there's monthly things that I have to pay whether I like it or not. So what I liked about the franchise are some of the same things that, pay for money, with, like an advertising fee or something. So I don't have to worry about maintaining a website and doing all that, but somebody's doing it for me and therefore has to get paid for it.
Yeah, it's true. And they do run, like you can get franchises for a little money, or you can get like a Dunkin' Donuts franchise. You talked about a McDonald's franchise for a lot of money. So there is a broad spectrum too. So
Yeah.
although there's the upsides, the business in a box, and you don't have to brand and all kinds of other stuff, you really have to be serious. If you're going to invest, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even more, or less, whatever, and monthly. It's not just that first, like I buy the business in a box and then I take it home and I get to use it. It's monthly. Then you really need to be serious about a franchise. A business, on the other hand, I mean, there's all kinds of different businesses. So the general rule of thumb that I think of is to get into a business where what I call like the barrier to entry is low. It means you have to do a lot. There's like high competition. You have to do a lot to succeed. So one of a low barrier to entry business is like a direct sales business. So I did, when I was staying home with kids, I did a direct sales business, and I determined, well, in order to make money, like I can't possibly sell enough products. You have to, recruit other people, mentor other people into the business to sell, and then grow a team that way. And it's not a pyramid scheme. They're not all pyramid schemes. They're multi-level marketing is what they're called. But grow the multi-levels, and that's how you make money. So it might cost like $100 for a kid or $200 for a kit. Barrier to entry, you need no education. You need anything. They're going to educate you, train you. Um, and you can get started in that business tomorrow. But if you want to be that top 1% that, they're like, oh, we're making $1 million selling cosmetics or whatever it is, you have to hustle. And
But
other businesses, there's a lot more money investment, and it takes a lot more to grow. So they do, I said that was like on the low cost, low barrier to entry scale for businesses. Have you ever done a direct sales business?
I did, but the one thing I'm kind of glad you brought it up because sometimes with these people that when they do multi-level marketing, it gets to the point where every conversation with them is like a sales pitch. I mean, right? And then
Yes.
they become from being a great friend to that friend you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that happen many a times. And when I got into it, they're like, oh, you lean on your 10 friends and you whatever you go out or whatever the numbers were. I got into it because my sister just she wanted someone to do it with. Basically, it wasn't something that I had a real great vision. But if you don't really do the work, and then, like I said, I remember I had once I was going through this like horrible health scare, and then it's like, oh, you may have cancer, and they're like, oh, I know this. You should use this special water. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, like this is not the time for an 8,000 water machine. Like it's to get electrified water is going to cure, but I mean, can you speak a little bit to that, right? Like,
Yeah, well, when I was training people in the business, I would tell people get out of your inner circle as fast as you possibly can. Right. So I would tell people if you want to sign up and you want me to help you grow the direct sales business, you need 6 parties, 6 connections, whatever to help you grow. And then so your family, your friends, they're willing to help you launch a business. Launch a business. They don't want to be the perpetual customers and the reason why you stay in business. And you don't want them to be that way either. They're going to know that you're doing it because they're helping you launch it and you're explaining that to them. But then, then for those people, you kind of let them reach back out to. If you're selling that, I don't even know what she was talking about, to be honest. $8,000 water, whatever.
oh,
I sold home decorating products, for example. So if you're, the people that know you're selling it, they can be like, hey, I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. But the sooner you get outside of your circle, I tell people, the better, right? Because if Antoinette's going to help me and then she introduces me to like her friends and I start working with them and they introduce me to their friends, it's kind of like a tree branch and I'm removed from Antoinette. And so when she wants to support my business, then she can. And it doesn't put a strain on our relationship that she has to keep me in business, which is, I think,
yeah, I
the
think,
burden that
yeah,
that sometimes you face when people are just like, well, I'm not running my business properly. And so now I'm going to continue to reach out to you to buy from me because you're my sister, you're my
yeah.
aunt, you're my whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Like if you're in business, I mean, I get that you're always in business and you're looking for opportunities, But be cognizant, like not everybody wants to be sold to 24/7. Not every conversation is, the latest sales tip, like if you sales cosmetics and somebody whatever gets an eye infection from mascara, just sympathize that they look like Cyclops and
Okay.
you know, and don't be like, oh, and my $20 mascara wouldn't have done this to your, you know what I mean? Like just
Yes, not everything is a sales
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's good for any business. So, the next type of business that most people launch is they have some skill or they have something they're excited about and they want to start doing that. So, maybe somebody knows how to paint or somebody knows how to do something or they want to work with pets or they want to work with dogs or they want to work with people that quilt and sew and our friend Josh owns a great place here in town, Cut Up and Sew in Palm Coast. And so he's helping people, the next generation and the current generation of people, to learn how to sew and things like that. So that's a really passionate thing. And that's what gets people into the business. And so if you want to start a business like that, you're like, oh my gosh, I always have these great ideas. I think I could run a business doing XYZ. Perfect. Wonderful. However, 80% of starting a business and making it successful is the same across the board, and 20% is the industry. So you only have 20% when you have that idea. You still need sales skills, marketing skills, business skills, administrative skills. If you're going to have employees, like hiring and firing skills. And I'm not saying you have to work with a business and financial coach, but you do know one because you're watching this episode. But it really does help you shortcut that success curve because it is not a myth that most businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years. And if you fail for 3 consecutive years out of 5, the IRS won't even allow you to call it a business anymore. It's then a hobby. And so you want to like gain all of that knowledge. So I tell people, if you want to start a business today, you should have thought about it a year ago. You should have started to build the people, talk to people about it, build your knowledge, build your expertise, like get everything in a row. Because what I see happen for people is they're like, oh, I'm super excited. I'm going to start this business. And they like get business cards and like, I'm going to get a website and I'm going to order t-shirts. And they're like so excited with the idea of having a business. And then they've got all that stuff and they've spent all this money and they haven't even made a dime yet. So I'm like, okay, let's make some money before we spend all this money and let's do it the right way. And the right way really is to gain all of that 80% worth of skills that you need to have a good small business and potentially a large business in the future before your idea kind of sinks your ship. And that's why I think that's the number one reason why people fail. It's because they don't do the pre-planning.
Yeah. I think another thing is too is people have these high hopes and there's nothing wrong with, hopes and dreams and aspirations, but you got to be realistic about them too. So for one, people are like, oh, I'll get a website, whatever. Nobody's knocking down the door to get in your website, honestly. Like you're not going to put up a website and all of a sudden your phone's off the hook and oh my God, I want the next thing you sew or make or, it's one of those that it really requires a strategy. And I think another thing where people fail is they don't have enough savings to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some distinctions to make when you're starting a business. First of all, is it going to be like a service base, something like that? Are you going to operate from your home? Is it going to be a brick and mortar where you have an actual location? I mean, these are all things to consider depending on what you're doing. You really need to flesh those out. The other thing is having enough savings, like I said, in reserve, because however quickly in your mind you think you're going to make this money, you're wrong. I mean,
If
I
you're
mean,
not working with a coach.
no, but I'm just saying, like in general, hiccups happen. I mean, life happens.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, you might just be one of those, the one out of a million that just happens to hit the ground running and everything's going good. But then something happens. Maybe your husband gets sick, or maybe this happened. There are hiccups. No matter, even if you're doing everything right, that you just need to plan for and have a plan for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When they happen.
I tell people that like people will say to me like, "Oh, well, I know this person that did this thing and they were like super successful." The success you see on the outside, you missed all the planning and preparation and work done on the inside. So I mean, even actors and actresses, they always talk about like how, you thought like this person hit it they just hit it big, and they're like, no, I was turned down for this, and I was turned down for this, and I was turned down for this, and I almost didn't make it, and I was eating peanut butter and jelly. Like, you didn't see all of that. You saw the success. And most business owners will tell you that, yeah, there was a lot that went into making their business a success. But when it is a success, and when you are running a great business on your own, I can't think of anything that is more rewarding in life to give you that kind of flexibility. And, the income producing power is amazing because it's a direct correlation of your effort. It's not like, okay, no matter how much I do or how little I do, this is my check and this is my check.
Yeah.
But at the same token, it really is in a correlation. So if you don't do anything, then guess what? The checks just aren't coming automatically. And I think that's another thing that stops people from actually starting a business is the fear and the security of having a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job. There's all kinds of people in the world. And I always do this analogy. I'm like, okay, you get on a cruise ship, and there's the captain that's like actually navigating the ship, and he's got his whole crew that's helping him navigate the ship. But then you've got like the rest of the crew. Some of them are like swabbing the deck, and some of them are organizing the events. And then you've just got the person laying by the pool. It's okay to just lay by the pool. Like, that's what people do on a cruise. And not everybody is meant to be a business owner. So if you're like, well, I just don't know if I could do it, and you really, you enjoy your job and you enjoy working for someone, then try to, be as successful as you can in that industry, whichever industry you're in, because business ownership is not for everyone.
Yeah.
But for the people that can make it work, I think it's a fantastic
Yeah.
way to grow your wealth.
Yeah. And there's also, I mean, not to spend a whole lot of time on this, but there's a job and then creating your own business, but there's other ways to grow your finances outside of those two. So don't think like, oh, I'm stuck in this job, but I know I can't be a business owner. You could do it through investing. You could do it. You could even be a silent partner in a business. There's a lot of different things that you could do. I mean, I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole with that, but just keep that in mind.
Well, I tell people, think about it this way. Like, I'm Laura, and if I go work for a business, that I'm just going to work for one client. They're going to give me money, and they're my only client. But if I help them grow that business, if I bring in clients, if I, am part of the team in fostering like initiatives as far as innovative technology, and like I said, introducing the owners to clients and things like that, then I am in charge of growing my income. Because I don't think there's anybody that owns a business. If their employee is bringing in clients on the regular basis and they're networking and they're marketing, they're going to be like, I'm still just going to pay you exactly what I hired you for. No way. I mean,
Yeah.
if I have somebody working for me and they're going above and beyond, and they're helping grow my business, they're going to reap the benefits. And
Yeah.
if you don't, find another job in the same industry with an owner that will, because I can't think of any business owner that's like, no, don't bring in any new clients.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think is important to mention too, when you're opening a business, like I have a design firm and then I have a home inspection company. So one of the reasons I got in the home inspection business was because in design, as I have staff and, it ranged in numbers or whatever, but there's a direct correlation to what I bring to the table. So if I'm missing, it's noticeable. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
it wasn't where I could just go off and take, let me take a month off and backpack over Europe and hope I have a business when I come home, because it's not going to be there. Especially like in that industry, projects just roll one into the other, and they can't just go on hold because you're doing something. Other industries, you can do something like that. But with the home inspection, that's something that, again, it's a trained skill, but it's something I can train others to do well. And it's something that gives me the time freedom. So when you're thinking about a business, also think about that too. Like, what kind of lifestyle are you hoping to get from that business? Not everything is going to give you the type of freedom that you want. And I think this is something that schools actually do a disservice when they're kind of, like a guidance counselor. I mean, I'm sure there's great ones out there, but mine they really didn't take the time to sit there and go through industries of, like here's a great job, and they have pensions and you know what I mean? There's other things involved that when you're striving towards a career choice or a career change that you might not even consider. You might just be thinking the actual job, but sometimes there are all these different other benefits or um, difficulties that you also want to consider. So the main thing is get as much knowledge beforehand before you decide to open a business. And one other thing that Laura kind of touched upon, like people do they get the logo and the business cards or whatever. And as a design person, I'm like, I was like chomping at the bit, like, but so many people, they'll just quickly pick a name and, they'll go and get some, oh, here's a $25 logo. And then they launch a business. And I cringe because that is so much of your persona is your brand, your image, the logo you put on, they're huge. So it's one of those that it really makes time to spend the money and get it done right, than just rush into it till you have something on a business card. You could put your name, what you do on a business card when you're very early starting out, but when you start really actively marketing yourself and marketing your brand, you want to make sure there's a strategy behind it. I mean, everything from your colors to your name. Like, do you want it whimsical? Do you want to be more serious? What are your competitors doing? Do you sign out? Are you infringing on someone else's copyright? Are you trying to use a logo that, that same logo is used from a church 3 towns over, and now it's like you have the same logo and you realize this 10 years into your business? I mean, I've seen it. Like,
Oh my.
my church back in Connecticut went through a redesign and the thing looks like toothpaste. I mean, I'm not even kidding me. Like, I mean, I look at it, I just see toothpaste. It's supposed to be a river, but it's a real minty river that would look great on a tooth. But it's one of those that you really, sometimes you're so focused on your brand and you're this, you really need somebody with, I've been in this business a long time. I've done a ton of redesigns. I've helped global businesses around the world. And some of the stuff that I see happening is just, it's ridiculous because it could actually break your business for nothing other than your name or your logo. And it has nothing to do with your abilities.
I think some people make it too complicated too, because like the Target logo is so simple. I see it, I'm like, okay, it's a Target. Or like the Nike logo or Adidas or any of those, they're so simple. And I think small business owners sometimes they want to make it so creative and so crazy and they really should talk to an expert and say, okay, like 10 years from now, if your business is a multi-million-dollar business, are people going to remember this? Well,
Yeah.
the average person now has the attention span of a goldfish. And
Yeah.
so like I think you need to like make it super simple, or else
Well,
people can't, they're not going to remember your logo. And if they can't remember your logo, they can't remember your brand.
yeah.
And
Well,
it's
I think
horrible.
you bring up a really good point too, because sometimes people think, they'll have a logo and, oh, and it's, it needs to be two birds picking up a baby that just got, with a fig leaf, like it's all this stuff. And it's like, you have to realize a logo should work whether it's teeny tiny or on a billboard. And sometimes like simple is better, and it's not saying that it wasn't thought out, but you also got to realize too, if you're a mom and pop versus a Nike,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like you can come up with some arbitrary name if you have the marketing and the funds and whatever. But what a lot of mom and pops do is they bring together maybe two words that mean something for that industry. You know what I mean? So when someone reads that, they know, oh, okay, that's an ice cream shop. Or if they see an ad, they're like, oh, that's, whatever, financial. I bet she does something with money. I don't know. I'm not Einstein, but I'm thinking she's not the ice cream shop. Where other people come up with these things, and in your head, like you don't want to be thinking, you come up with these words and they mean something to you. Maybe it was whatever.
So I shouldn't have named my business like the Dragon Reborn. Like,
No, but like I've seen it over and over again, and it's a disconnect. And if it's one thing to do that, like if you come up with some ridiculous, like, but you're still coming up with words which mean something. If you go, I'm going to name my financial company like Asbiscus Gum, and it's like that means nothing to nobody. But you have the marketing where everyone's going, like all of a sudden it's this new word, like, you know what I mean? Like Reebok, what was Reebok before Reebok? Nothing. Like it didn't mean anything. But their marketing, they didn't want it to mean anything. They didn't want it to be associated anything with this brand strategy. Again, that's a strategy. You know what
Right.
I mean?
People need to
Because,
plan.
yeah, so those are things to consider, where people think like, oh, I'm just going to come up with something. If there's not the strategy behind it, where people are going to know what this crazy word means that you're putting together, no one will ever know what that means unless they're your friends or family.
Right. So when you're starting a business, you really have to think like, okay, this year, these are the things that I want to get done, and this is what I want to accomplish. This is the strategy. This is, I'm going to talk to somebody in marketing and design. I'm going to talk to, a coach. I'm going to reach out to other people. I'm going to run my ideas past somebody. To make sure that they make sense. And then where do I want to be in 5 years and where do I want to be in 10 years? Some countries have like a 350-year plan as to what they're going to do for their economy. And some business owners, they get into business and they don't even have like a 3-month plan. And you were talking about like a savings. I tell people you don't have to like just, okay, tomorrow I'm quitting my job and then, the next day I'm going to start a business. A lot of people start businesses on the side. Even myself, I started coaching people on the side. I became a CPA. I was in public accounting at the time, and people were like, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And so I started coaching on the side. And then finally I built up a cushion, like a 6-month cushion.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, make it or break it. I have 6 months to make it happen. And, thankfully I did. But I also had a plan. And I went into the year before that I finally quit. And I knew exactly what I was doing. I had already started networking. I had already started building, a group of people that knew what I was going to be doing. And I already had a strategy down. I had a game plan. And so I think like an ounce of planning is so important
Yeah.
in the future. And so I think that's probably the best of it. Planning, focus, and gaining like a group of people that you can trust. We have a great bookkeeper that we know, like Matanzas
Yeah.
Bookkeeping, Greg, and like getting people around you to help you succeed, because having a small business, it can be kind of lonely. And it's not like a franchise where there's a business in a box. You have to build the box. You have
Yeah.
to build
And
it for
just one
yourself.
thing to piggyback, like there are so many businesses you can start on the side, but also be wary there's some you can't.
Mm.
So if you're in direct competition with your current job, don't do anything that's really gonna wreck your name in the industry. You know what I mean?
Oh, some of
Where,
them have contracts
well,
that
some
say
of your
like,
contracts
yeah.
non-compete, whatever. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I hope that at least scratches the surface of, starting a business. We're kind of running out of time, but our next topic is
Oh.
going to be interesting. So it's to be workouts or exercises for lazy people.
Yes, and I am that lazy person.
Yeah. So
So
this is, we were going to name it exercises that Laura can do, but
too specific. Very, very specific in that scenario. But I'm going to close this out. And here's the thing about exercise. Okay, I am not a gym person. Like I don't like this. I don't even like the smell of the gym. I don't like the look of the gym. I don't want to wear the gym clothes. So and I wouldn't consider myself like a lazy person, but I like to exercise and do things that are fun, or I like to incorporate it into my life. And we're all busy, right? We all are striving for extra time, and there's only 168 hours in the week. And so next time we come back and talk to you, we're going to talk about easy exercises for lazy people. She's just joking with me, but easy exercises that you can incorporate into your life and feel like you can stay fit. And I think it's a really important topic, because we did talk about nutrition, and we're going to continue to talk about that. But exercise is a important component to keep a healthy weight, but also it creates like endorphins and
yeah,
feel good
yeah.
feelings. So we have to close out today. Sorry, I feel like we ran out of time so fast here, but I want to make sure that you join us next time, and never stop learning.
And never stop laughing. See you next week.